Introduction. The Early Years. William Lee Kaplan gazed at Clara, his wife of 30 years, as she headed for the kitchen with that no-nonsense walk of hers. Even after all these years, she still had the roundest behind ever. What a woman! He grinned as he settled into his favorite taupe-colored love seat in the living room, thinking of the deal they had made during their first year of marriage, back in 1961. Being a slim man with an appetite for beer, Cap had promised his wife that he wouldn't develop one of those ugly, swollen beer bellies, and in return, Clara promised that she would keep her behind tight and round. Cap was rubbing his ample belly when Clara called out to him, "Cap, how do you want your eggs?" Cap laughed and yelled, "On that big round ass of yours, baby." Clara chuckled, "I'll just scramble them since you can't decide." There was a time Cap's answer would have sent all sorts of signals to Clara. It would have insinuated that he was in the mood for some lovin'. It would have caused Clara to jump on her husband so fast he wouldn't have known what hit him. But Clara had learned early in their relationship that making love in the morning wasn't something her husband enjoyed. Too rushed, with work and the kids. On weekends, too easy to fall back asleep. Cap had long preferred quality over quantity. During the honeymoon stage of their marriage, Cap would tell Clara repeatedly, "If you do anything you like over and over, you won't like doing it anymore." Though Clara disagreed with his way of thinking, she soon fell in line when Cap vowed to investigate and master every sensitive part of her body. Cap would drive Clara wild, sometimes leaving her breathless. Once Clara started hearing how sexually unsatisfied her girlfriends were by their husbands, she started to feel pretty lucky and let Cap have his way. He chuckled while recalling one particular evening after a romantic dinner, when one of the neighbors heard some loud moans along with furniture abruptly being moved around. The neighbor thought Cap must be trying to harm Clara, so he called the police. When the police arrived, they informed Cap and Clara that someone had reported a domestic dispute. Clara had started to laugh, and Cap stood at the door with more pride than he could ever remember having. Without a blink of an eye, he shrugged and said, "Officers, we're just making love. Can a black man make love to his wife in America?" Struggling to keep a straight face, the officers had told him to try and keep it down. Cap nodded soberly. "Will do, officers." Cap and Clara had returned to the bedroom. Cap had pulled down his pants, exposing his still erect penis. He turned to Clara in mock concern and said, "Baby, those officers said that I better keep this thing down or they're going to lock my black ass up." Cap and Clara had laughed long and hard that night and recounted the incident years to come. The Kaplan's house was located on the southeast side of Jamaica, Queens. Cap had purchased the house at a time when the interest rates were very low. At least once a week he would pat himself on the back for having the guts to buy a house during a time when almost everyone he knew advised against it. Cap would often reminisce about the discussions he'd had with some of his running buddies from his old neighborhood, especially his boy Jimmy. Jimmy would come up with every reason in the world for not purchasing a home. "Man, you don't want a house," he would say. "If the boiler blows, what the hell are you gonna do, man? You'll be up shit's creek. God help if you're late one time paying your taxes. They'll take your house right from up under you." "Nah, man, you don't want a house. Here in the projects, you don't have no worries." Cap had listened to Jimmy for some 3 years, until one day, he finally got up enough nerve to take his boss up on a long-standing offer. Cap's boss, Harvey Fortuna, owned his own trucking business, along with a beautiful house in South Jersey. When Cap walked up to Harvey that day, he learned a very important lesson. If you need information about something you're not sure about, don't get the information from someone who's in the same situation you are. Cap scratched his head and sighed, recalling Harvey's response to his question about Jimmy's warnings. Harvey had rolled his eyes, as if Cap was an absolute fool, then said, "Man, if the fucking boiler happens to blow, you get it repaired or you buy a new one. You black motherfuckers kill me with this shit. You want to live in the damn projects all your life, Cap? Stop listening to those dumb bastards in your neighborhood. The only time you should be listening to them is if you want to know when the government cheese is being handed out. Man, I don't know what more I can do for you, Cap. I've invited you up to the house at least 3 times and you never come. Shit, I'm not inviting you up there because I like seeing your face. I want you to see some of the possibilities life has to offer. You know what, Cap? We've been through this shit too many times. Get your work orders and get the hell out of my office." Cap walked out of Harvey's office that day upset, yet determined. He stopped by the front desk, picked up his work orders, secured them on his clipboard, and proceeded to the loading dock where his truck was parked. Before getting into the truck, he glanced down at the orders and noticed that the Pegasus Finishing Company in Atlantic City was his first stop for the day. The trip could take anywhere from 4 to 6 hours there and back. He would drop off cases of yarn and pick up finished goods, such as sweaters and women's dresses. At $150 per leg, it was Cap's favorite run. Whenever Cap saw the Pegasus run amongst his work orders, he would usually think about how large his paycheck was going to be that day. However, he wanted to use the time to think about what Harvey had said to him earlier. Cap hopped into his truck and slowly pulled out of the loading dock. Holding the steering wheel with one hand, he extracted a Cool's menthol from the pack in his shirt pocket, tucked the cigarette under the right corner of his lip, and lit it, happy that he had a nearly full pack, because he was already gassed up, and the only reason he would need to stop would be if he was low on stogies. Cap's truck wasn't equipped with a radio, so he brought along a portable radio with a cassette player. He kept his driving music, mostly gospel, in a box under the passenger seat of the truck. His choice for today's ride was The Mighty Clouds of Joy, one of Clara's favorites. In fact, she had begged him to keep the tape at home, knowing she would never see it again if he took it on the road. But driving was hard work, and he figured he needed it more than she did. The first song on the tape, Heavy Load, started as Cap turned onto the New Jersey Turnpike. Cap began bouncing up and down in his seat, singing at the top of his lungs. On a Friday, I got rid of my heavy load. His mind soon turned to Harvey's invitation to come over to his house. Shit, who the hell wants to be up in that man's house? I hate going to white people's houses. You walk into the living room and you don't even know if you can sit down on the fucking furniture because it looks like it's on display or something. He remembered the time he went to his friend Tim's house after they'd been working in the hot summer sun one day. Tim's wife asked him to take off his shoes because of the Italian rug. Shit, that rug hadn't looked any better than the one Clara bought from Rico's Carpet Corner. But all Cap kept thinking was, I can't take off my shoes because I have a big-ass hole in my sock. Tim's wife was standing there waiting like some school teacher, though. So he obliged. There he was, crossing their fancy Italian rug with his big toe hanging out like it was proud. It wasn't long before the funk from his feet started to kick in and invade the air. After about 2 minutes, Tim's 6-year-old son yelled out, "Dad, what is that smell? It smells like burnt waffles or something." Cap had felt horribly embarrassed. I gotta admit, though, they still treated me like a guest. Tim never said a word to me about the incident. Had Tim come over to my house with some kind of funk attached to his body, I would have told him to wash his ass and dared him to come back to my house smelling like that again. Cap concluded that visiting Harvey's house couldn't be any worse than what he'd endured at Tim's. Furthermore, if he didn't go, he would have to listen to Harvey's damn mouth every time he asked him a question about buying a home. Though Harvey was a bit blunt, Cap admitted to himself that his boss was indeed right. He wasn't going to get the answers he needed talking to anyone in the projects. Maybe he would ask Harvey if it would be okay to bring Clara with him. Who knows? We all might have a good time. Cap took the exit for Atlantic City. Thinking about Clara, she was talking more and more about starting a family, and he didn't want to raise children in the projects. I gotta start pulling things together. Clara's starting to think that I'm full of shit, and my excuses for waiting are sounding tired even to me. The image arose in his mind of Clara just the other night, standing in their tiny kitchen, with her hands on her fabulous hips, talking about her biological clock. I don't know how much longer I can hold her off. Clara heard her name called over the clinic loudspeaker. She quickly gathered her things and headed through the door labeled Patient Information. At the end of the corridor, a nurse spotted her and yelled, "Miss Kaplan, over here." The nurse waited for Clara to get settled at her desk, then said she needed to ask some additional questions. She pulled out a form and clipped it to a folder. "How old are you, Miss Kaplan?" Clara squinted, confused. "What did you say?" The nurse looked up at Clara and spoke louder. "How old are you, Miss Kaplan?" This time, Clara understood what she was saying, but felt irritated. Why do they have foreigners doing the verbal questioning part? Damn. "I'm 22, she said. "Your husband? His name, please?" Clara sighed. "You already have that information. William Lee Kaplan."